Hi everybody, this is Julie Bean with Beadaholique, and in this video I'm going to teach you how to do circular brick stitch around a link or form. So here is one example that I've done, and you can see it just has that little circle in the inside of it, and that's what we're stitching around. That is our foundation. And that was using Miyuki 11 Delicas. Here is another example. Again, it's just circular brick stitch, and it's just multiple rows of it, and I've added a few other beads to it as well. And here it is as well with a little bit bigger of a link, and this is using Toho round seed beads. So a little different look depending upon the bead that you choose to use. So this is the link itself, and I actually cut this off of a chain. So the chain actually had a ton of these on it. And these are sometimes, sometimes a great way to find these little links is to use a link chain and cut it up. Or you can buy them separately usually, and they come in different sizes and different shapes. They're usually referred to as a link or a round or a connector, different terms. I like to use the word link, but it's basically going to provide you a foundation. I'm going to be using 11 Miyuki Delicas, and I'm going to be using a pretty thick black thread to hopefully make it so it's a little easier to see on camera. Normally, I use a thread that's going to hopefully blend in or be part of the design. So here I used black. It was a little thinner black, but it became part of the design. And then I've done it before where I've used white thread, so it pretty much disappears. So what you're going to first do is tie your thread directly onto your link. So go ahead and just put that link right on the thread and pull it through so you have one end sticking out about 6 to 7 inches. Give yourself enough length that when you need to go back and put a needle on it and tie it off and weave it in, you're not struggling. So I'm just tying a knot, and I'm going to tie another knot, and I'm even going to go through it twice just for good measure. Okay, and I can tug on it and it's not going anywhere. That is anchored on there. So now I'm going to go to the other end and put my needle on it. Since we are using a little bit thicker thread here, a good tip is to just take that thread between your finger and your nail and kind of pinch it a little bit while sliding it off, and that helps to flatten it to go through your beading needle. Now that we've got that on there, we're going to pick up our first 2 beads. So we're going to start by picking up 2 beads, 1, 2, and put them on our needle. And I'm going to move these guys out of the frame here so that's a little easier to see. So I've got those 2 beads on there. I'm going to take them and slide them all the way down to the base. So they are now just sitting on top of that form. So now I'm going to go from the back to the front and go through the link. And I'm going to position those little beads on top of the link. Now I'm going to go up through the second one. And by doing that, I am anchoring them onto my form. So you can see that 2 are now secured. So you always start a row with 2 at the same time, so that you have one as the beginning one and one to go up through. Now I'm just going to pick up 1 at a time. So I've got 1 on my needle. I'm going to slide it all the way down. And now I'm going to go from the back forward. And you can kind of see I'm using my finger pressed up against it so that this bead doesn't slip on through. You don't want the bead to slip through the round, the link. Okay, now I'm just going to go back up through that bead, and now we've got our 3rd one on, and you just keep repeating this. You do bead after bead until you get to the end. So let's do another one. Put that 1 bead on our needle, slide it on down, put your needle through the round, make sure that bead stays up top, doesn't come on through, and just go through the bead. And this is really, truly one of my favorite stitches. I find it very calming, but I also find so many different things that you can do with it. So you'll just keep doing that until you get to the starting bead again. We've almost completed our foundation row, our first row here, and there is just one more bead to add. So this is where I think a lot of people end up debating whether to do one bead or two beads. So if you look at that gap, you can kind of eyeball it and say, well, maybe two beads will fit, but it will be crowded. And that's where you get a wobble in your work. So even though this gap is almost 2 beads wide, I'm still just going to use one more bead, because to me it'd be better to have just a little bit of an extra space between the beads right there than to have my beadwork wobbly. So I'm going to put that last bead down, do the same thing I've been doing. Okay, just go back up it. Okay, and now it needs to connect to my starting bead because I need a full circle. So I'm just going to go down through the bead I started with to create a thread bridge and to pull that other bead over. And now I actually like to go back up through that last bead just for good measure. And now we have our complete round of circular brick stitch on that link. Now I want to show you how to do a second row. So to do a second row, you already have your thread exiting one of the beads out of the top of it. And now I'm going to pick up a different color. I put another color on my table. So I've got this really pretty, almost like a periwinkle purple. So I got 2 beads again. Remember, you always start either your first row or any other subsequent rows with 2 beads. And now I'm going to go under a thread bridge. Now I am choosing to go under the thread bridge, which is closest to where my beadwork or my thread is exiting. So you see that right there? It's the very next one over. Okay, I'm pulling it. And again, I'm using my finger behind here to keep these beads in place and where I want them. Now I'm going to go up through that second bead again. And I'm going to pull. And now those 2 guys are anchored on there. And now it's just a repeat of what I just did, but with 1 bead. So now I've got this bead. I'm going to go under the thread bridge 1 over. You see that thread bridge that's up top that was from your base row? You're just going to go under that, pull through, and then back up and through that same bead. Let's do 1 more. Now, as you do this more, you might come across a situation where the next thread bridge is quite a ways over. And at that point, you can make a choice, like I am right here. You can see that there's a thread bridge that I just went under. Here's the next one over. You can go through, or go under, I should say, that exact same thread bridge for your next bead. It's all about what looks right and what prevents too large a gaps or buckling with your beadwork. So it's not a hard and fast rule, 1 bead per thread bridge, because as you're getting wider and you're going out, you're adding more beads. So at some point you probably will put 2 beads under the same thread bridge. So I'm actually going to do that just so you see what it looks like. So I'm going to go under that same thread bridge that I did for the last bead and pull and go up through that bead. And you see it's anchored on there just fine. And so I'm ready to just continue on my way. And this is especially true as you start adding different sized beads. So if we bring back my sample piece here, that's still not done, but you can see I've added some different bead sizes in there and different types of beads. So it wasn't always a matter of going under the very next thread bridge each time. So you're just going to play with it and have fun. It is a super fun stitch, and you'll just keep going. And then when this row is done, you'll jump up to the next one the same way I showed you how to jump up from the green to kind of this periwinkle color. And that is how you do circular brick stitch around a link, a form, a ring, whatever you want to call that little foundation piece but it creates really beautiful designs. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for joining us here at beadaholique.com, and check out our YouTube channel and our website for more videos all the time.